Hey, what's up everyone, and welcome to the School of Personal Finance. So this week I'm getting back to doing a case study. So in this example, I'm gonna have a married couple in their early 40s with 3 children. All right, they make a decent income, they live in a high cost of living area, just trying to figure everything out, right? New cars, saving for kids' college, saving for retirement. Would like to retire on the earlier side if possible, but they have a lot of headwinds. All right, let's get to it. All right, so real quick before we start, head over to schoolofpersonalfinance.com. Check out everything I've going on over there. Sign up for my newsletter. I'm rolling out digital courses, Personal Finance 101 for high school and college kids. I'm doing some more advanced courses. I'm doing Master Your Family's Finances in 30 days. And I am also offering what's called First Step to Financial Freedom, where we work one-on-one together over the course of a few months, having 3 Zoom calls to create your own financial plan. So come check it all out, schoolofpersonalfinance.com. All right, so let's jump into Right Capital here. Now, we always start on the profile page with net worth. So anytime we're building out a financial plan, we need to be able to look at the entire picture. So building out a net worth statement is the number one priority. All right, so we start out with bank accounts, so that's checking, savings accounts. Now for this example, I named them Rich and Karen. So, my wife's name is Karen. I figured that would make it easy. So we have $5,000 in checking, $5,000 in savings. So they have $10,000 in the bank right now. And they currently owe $8,000 on a credit card. I believe that they pay this thing off. Let me just change this, that they do pay this in full every month. So maybe they got some paychecks hitting soon, but they do not carry a balance on that credit card. All right, then if we look at their investment accounts, so Rich, he currently works for Mercedes-Benz, and he makes, I think he makes $110,000 a year there, but we'll look at that in the income section. But for his 401k, he currently has $284,000 in there, which is nice. And it's all invested in this Vanguard Target Retirement Fund, 2055 fund. And then Karen, she is a teacher. She's done a very good job saving in her 403b. We will actually name this 403b right here. And she has 308 grand in there. So it's a combination of the Vanguard Total Stock Market Index Fund and also the Vanguard Total Bond Market Index Fund. All right, and those are the only investment accounts they have. So now beyond that, they have 3 children, and they have a 529 plan for each child. So you can see for their son, who's the oldest, then their daughter, and then their youngest daughter. All right, so that's their investment account. So a total of 690 grand. So not bad. Now, each of them, we'll go look at family layout, but each of them are 40 years old. So Rich and Karen are both 40 years old. All right, no stock plans, no stock options or anything like that. Let's jump down to property. So their primary home is worth $600,000 right now. And, as sad as it is, where I live, a $600,000 house, they're just not what they used to be, right? The prices of homes have exploded over the last 5 years, basically. So they bought this house for $400,000, and now it's worth $600,000. So $600,000, it still gets you a nice house, but not what it used to buy you. Property taxes, $11,000 a year, which here in New York is crazy but true. And then, I've seen them much higher than that as well. Homeowners insurance, $2,000 a year. So now the mortgage, they only have a $255,000 mortgage on the property. So it started out as $320,000. They've been paying it off. Monthly payments, $17, $18 per month. They have a 30-year fixed rate mortgage at 5%. All right. So now we'll quickly look at insurance. So Rich has term life insurance, $1.5 million. The term ends in 2040. All right, Karen is 100% beneficiary. Karen doesn't have any private life insurance. She's a teacher, so she has 3 times her salary as a group benefit. So $270,000 is her life insurance. Then they have homeowners. They have an umbrella policy as well. So in a nutshell, that is their net worth statement. So total net worth is $1 million. And, my first thoughts are, this is pretty damn good. They're looking pretty good. They're doing well, saving for retirement, saving for college. They have no debt besides their mortgage, which is nice. The reason they don't have car loans is because they both lease their cars. So both of them do have leases on their cars, which if you watch any of my content, you know that I am not a fan of leasing cars. I think that's a terrible idea. It is by far the most expensive way to own cars. Unless you're, really well off and you don't really care, you just want to have a nice new car every 2 or 3 years, then that's fine. But if you're not in that situation, then leasing a car is just way too expensive. Bank accounts, $10,000, that would make me nervous. So I would question, why do they not have more of an emergency fund? So we'll look at cash flow as well and see what the deal is there. But out of everything, that jumps out at me. I want to start, obviously this credit card has to be zero every month, right? You got to pay it off in full every month. So it's fine to use it and run it up as long as you're paying it off in full by the statement cycle. So you're not carrying the balance, not paying any interest. So as long as they're doing that, that's cool. But if you subtract that from the cash they have, it leaves them with basically no cash. So priority number one to me would be, we need to build up an emergency fund. We'd have a conversation around that and see what is a happy number. I usually think it's somewhere in the ballpark of $20,000 to $30,000. Is a number that makes me sleep well at night, knowing that that is just sitting in the bank. And as inflation has taken hold and the cost of everything has gone up, I'm closer to that $30,000 range rather than the $20,000 range. All right, so I'm just going to speed through this because I don't want this video to take, a half hour. All right, so this is where we enter goals. So like retirement goals, age 62, retirement expenses, that's how much they'd like to be able to spend every month in retirement. That's on top of any other expenses that we've already accounted for. So like if their mortgage is still going to continue into retirement, then that would be included on top of this $5,000 a month. Then we have healthcare. So now this healthcare, it might be off if she's a teacher and maybe she gets healthcare in retirement, where the only cost they would have would be Medicare at 65. When they both go on Medicare, they have the Part B premiums. Then we have college goals. So you can see here their college goals. It's not a tremendous amount of money. So if we click in on here, we're using a national average for a public school in state, and they have their kids borrowing some of the cost. So basically they're taking on, a little more than 2/3, and the child is taking on a little less than 1/3 of the cost of college. All right, and that's for all 3 children. Then they have a $5,000 vacation goal each year. For their daughter's wedding. So they have 2 girls. They want to start planning for paying for weddings. So we have a goal of $40,000 to start saving for that in the future, right? I added this emergency fund of $30,000, and then they have this goal in retirement. They want to be able to travel the world for a few years. So we're doing $30,000 a year for 4 consecutive years, right? So when they both retire, we call those the go-go years. So they want to be able to go and party during the go-go years. And 4 years, that's not a long time of go-go years. They'll have more years than that, but they want to take 4 years to really spend it up and go travel and see the world. All right, so those are our goals. So income, so Rich's salary is 110, Karen's is 90. So between the two of them, they're making 200 grand a year. And we're using a 3% inflation kicker in here. So it goes up by 3% every year. Then we have Social Security, each of them planning on taking it at their full retirement age. And then because Karen's a teacher, she gets a pension. So we're guesstimating that her pension will be around $60,000 a year once she retires. So for savings, they're each doing 5% into their retirement plans, and they're contributing $3,000 per child into 529 plans. So now Rich, he gets a match on his 401k. It's 3%. So it's 100% up to the first 3%. And for Karen's 403b, that one, there is no match in the 403b world for New York State public teachers. All right, so that's all the savings that they're doing right now. Expenses. So life currently costs them $7,000 a month to live. Again, not including things we've already accounted for. So like their mortgage and their taxes and insurance that we saw on that net worth page, that is above and beyond the $7,000. And I'll show you where it all comes together, where we could see, break it down to a monthly amount. But these monthly expenses, this is in addition to their mortgage and their taxes and insurance. All right, and then we just take a quick look at the family, right? So Rich and Karen, they're both 40. Then their son is 13, their daughter's 10, and the youngest daughter is 6 years old. All right, so let's start. Let's look at this investment tab. So for their investment accounts, right, it gives us a nice little pie chart here. So 86% stock, 14% bond, which in my mind sounds pretty good, right? Even if we look at like Rich's 401k alone, this is a little bit more aggressive. This is in that target date retirement fund, the 2055 fund, right? For Karen's, I think it's actually, it's about the same, 8614, right? She owns that Vanguard Total Bond Market fund in there as well. And then we got the 529 plans. So everything looks pretty good there, right? Target, we'll say aggressive, 80-20, right in that range. And as we run retirement plans, we do what's called a glide path. So as they get older, as they approach retirement, the allocation automatically gets more conservative because that's realistic. You know, they're not going to be in an 85-15 portfolio their entire lives. When they retire, it might look more like 60-40, somewhere in that range. All right, so the software is able to account for that by using a glide path over time. And one thing I always like to look at in here is the tax allocation. So the tax allocation, you know, I talk about tax buckets all the time, and next week I'm actually doing a video on year-end tax strategies where I talk about tax diversification. So that'll be a week from tomorrow that I'm going to post that video. But as you can see here, all of their retirement money, it is in these tax deferred accounts, the 403b and the 401k. So this is all going to be taxed when they take it out in retirement. They don't have any Roth money. They don't have any taxable brokerage accounts. All of it is in tax deferred. So we call this a ticking tax time bomb, right? Because once they're retired, they're going to have Karen's pension, they'll have Social Security, and then they're going to have to start taking distributions from this, and it's all going to be taxable. I don't love having that going into retirement. I would much rather have a nice bucket of Roth money where it's going to be tax-free in retirement, and also some brokerage accounts as well, you know, after-tax money that you could pull on that aren't tied to a retirement date that you have access to before that, where you have capital gains and things like that. This tax-free asset, those are the kids' 529 plans because those are going to come out tax-free. So this is another point for me that kind of sticks out that I'd like to see some changes with. All right, let's get into the meat of the retirement planning aspect of it. So if you're not familiar with RightCapital, right, this is what's called a Monte Carlo simulation. So with the Monte Carlo simulation, the system, it runs 1,000 different scenarios, and it shows what is the probability of success. And the definition of the probability of success is that you do not run out of money by the end of plan. So for each of them, the end of plan is age 90. All right. So they have, in this scenario, they have 100% probability of success, meaning there is no environment where they run out of money before age 90, which is great, right? We want to see 100%. Now, I don't put everything into these probability of successes. I use it as a guardrail, right? So yes, I'm happy that it says 100%, but even if it said 50%, there are things that we might be able to tweak. There's moves we might be able to make. It's not like if it is not at 100%, that means that you're going to fail in retirement, right? A lot of times, if you're 80% or better, there are ways that we could tweak it, ways that we could work it, that you're going to be fine in retirement. And there's a lot of unknowns. So anytime you do a retirement plan, it's like, if you're 40 years old doing a retirement plan, so much is going to change in your life between now and retirement that you can't account for it all, right? So retirement planning, I always refer to it as like a living, breathing document. It's something that is always changing with the times, and life throws curveballs at you, so you can't plan for everything. You just don't know what's going to happen in the future. But with all that said, it's good to see 100%. This $10 million mark over here, that's a nice number as well. That is the median amount after all the simulations that they are left with at the end of their lives, at the end of plan. So, this is all looking pretty rosy right now as we look at this. So now current plan, this is based on all the data that we just went over. So their incomes, how much they're saving, how much they have in the bank, all of that, right? That's where they get this current plan. Proposed plan is if we want to make changes, right? So say, for example, Karen's like, you know what, I'm miserable. I want to get the hell out of here. And then Rich is like, well, if she wants to get out of there, I ain't going until 62. Maybe I'll go to 58, right? So if we change these retirement ages down, how does that impact our plan? So if we go back up, we could see, it's still, if I was working with these clients, like my initial thought would be it's doable. If that's something that you really want to do, it might take some sacrifice, right? There's definitely more risk in retiring early. Maybe you could add another small part-time job when you're retired, do something that you love, that you're passionate about, and bring in a little bit extra income. But I think it would totally be feasible, right? So what if they said, you know what, I'd also like to be able to spend more in retirement as well. I want to retire early and I want to spend more. Right now we're going to start seeing this drop, right? So now we're getting into a risky zone where I would be like, that might be pretty hard to pull off. All right, so that is what the proposed plan means, what we're changing in here from their current situation. All right, so I'm going to go back ahead and reset these. Let's go to 62, 62, and then 5,000, and we will hit refresh. All right, one other tab that I love to look at is savings, right? So I like to look at savings rates. All right, so for this year, so they're making $200,000 and they're going to be saving $26,581. So that is 13.3% would be considered their savings rate. So I use it as a rule of thumb. If you could have a 20% savings rate, that is awesome. That would be a good place to be, where you're saving 20% of your gross income. All right, so we could see in their retirement account, they were each doing 5%. So that would be $10,000 plus Rich gets the employer match. That's where we get up to this 13.3. Right, the kids 529 plans, this is that 9,000, and then whatever excess cash flow they have left, we're dumping into a taxable brokerage account. All right, and they're not currently doing this, but after working with me, that's what they would be doing, right? Because if we run the numbers and we see that they do have excess cash flow, we got to give that money a job. We're not going to just let it, wither away. So the job that I would give it in this instant, and maybe we would put other goals in place that would be different, but the system defaults to any excess cash flow to going into a taxable account. All right, so savings rate, that is a big piece of what I'm looking at. All right, so after that, let's start looking at the cash flows. All right, so this is like a nice visual right here. It just breaks everything down for the current year as far as their cash flow goes. So like salary, so total inflow is 200 grand, and then we see where it goes. So their living expenses, all right, then we have their goals. So the goals, this is the $5,000 vacation goal. We have their tax payments, federal, state, FICA. We have their planned savings. So we have the 401k and the 529 plan. And then we have the net cash flow that we're saving in that taxable brokerage account, that $4,281. And for their living expenses, we can see how it's broken down. All right, we have the $7,000 a month living expenses that we put in there. Then we have their housing expense, which is their mortgage, the principal, interest, the taxes, and insurance. And then we have that $8,000 credit card bill that they need to wipe out of there. All right, so this gives a current year. And then here we can scroll forward to future years, which is pretty cool. But I really do love using this summary table. All right, so this gives us all years into the future, and it lets us really look out and get a good idea of what's going on. All right, so we can see each age, right? So we're starting, because we're at the end of 2023 right now, we're starting with 2024, so they'll both be 21. I'm sorry, they'll both be 41. They have $200,000 of income. We can see their expenses, right? So it's all that other data just in a tabular form here. Tax payments, the planned savings, total outflows. So we could see this is the net cash that's left over. So for these net flows, we'd have to have a discussion, do they actually see these net flows in their bank accounts? Are they actually saving that money each year, or are we just off on the monthly expenses that we're estimating? So a very important piece to creating these plans is you have to have tight numbers with your expenses, because you could be off. Life is crazy, right? And from 1 month to the next, your expenses change. So it's very hard to really dial in on that. Like, I love using software. RightCapital itself has a great budget tool that I personally use. Other apps out there like Mint recently is, they were taken over, and now Mint is going away, which kind of sucks. Personal Capital has a budget tool. I think there are a couple other ones that are becoming popular. Monarch Money, I believe, is another one. I haven't checked it out. But I love using apps and technology to be able to track my spending so I know exactly how much life costs me every month. All right, but you want to have that number as close as possible because it makes a huge difference, right? If we were off, if they really spend $8,000 a month and we put $7,000 in there, then this number would be negative, right? They'd have negative cash flow this year. That basically would wipe out the cash flow in each of these years if we were $1,000 a month off on their expenses. So that part of it is very important. All right, so as we go through here, we can see their goals and how it changes in the future. So in 2028, that's when their son starts going to college, right? And then this distribution, this is coming out of the 529 plan. All right, so they have a goal for vacation in here, and then the rest of the goal is college. So if I click on this, we'll see it, right? We got education, and then we got the vacation goal. So this 24,237, that is being distributed from their 529 plan. All right. So this is a net worth tab, so we could look at net worth throughout the future, into the future years. You can see, their net worth, it grows, dramatically over time. even with their primary residence, right? We can see their mortgage. It gets paid off here in 2042 is the last year that they have their mortgage. But you have to remember, inflation plays a big part of this. So in 2042, basically 20 years from now, the cost of living, it's probably going to be double what it is today. If we have a 4% inflation rate, then the cost of living, it's going to be much higher than it is right now. All right, so back to the summary overall. So as we scroll through, we could see that they have positive cash flow going all the way through, right? Their income is good. Their income is growing. Everything's going the way that they want it to. Their expenses are staying, significantly under their income with everything, even with, the high taxes that they're paying, their goals, their planned savings, right? They're still cash flow positive in these years to the tune of $40,000+ per year that they could go ahead and save in different types of accounts. And then retirement year, so this $60,000, right? They both turn 62. They both retire 2045. This $60,000 right here, that is Karen's pension. So that's the only income that they have right there, right? So their net flows, they're big time negative, right? So they need to pull money from their investment accounts at this point while they're building a bridge to Social Security, right? Before they are able to start taking Social Security. But at this point in 2045, if they continue to save the way that they are, right? We could take a look at 2045. Let's actually do... Which one would we write? Let's go accounts. So in 2045, they would have saved over $700,000 in a taxable brokerage account just from that excess cash flow being saved every year. And between the 401k and the 403b, it would grow to $3.8 million. So now, is that realistic, right? It is. If they continue to save at that clip, they leave their money invested for growth, all right, because we're using a pretty aggressive allocation with them. So probably using an average rate of return right around 8% for these retirement accounts. And like I said before, as they get older, we're using lower and lower rates of return. But all the way leading up to retirement, we're probably using in the range of an 8% return, maybe dialing it down to about 7% when we get to this point. So they have $3.8 million in these retirement accounts, and they have $777,000 in their taxable brokerage account. So this is the year 2045. So in that year, right, where they're retired, it's not that big of a deal for them to pull this money from their taxable brokerage account. They don't even need to take distributions from the retirement accounts at that point. And then at 67 is when they turn Social Security on. So now if we click on income in the year 2050, right, we have Social Security between the two of them, $122,000 and the $60,000 pension. And then at age 75, when they're required to take money from those tax deferred accounts, right? This is the ticking tax bomb that we were talking about before. Their RMD, their required minimum distribution, $321,000 that they have to take, and they don't really need the money, right? So you can see how much they owe in taxes that year, and really every year going forward, because they're going to have to continue taking these required distributions from the 401k and the 403b. But now they have all this net cash flow that they're basically just going to reinvest in taxable brokerage accounts. All right, so as we go and look through this, I know right away that they are on a very solid financial footing, right? Is there anything that could really blow them up in this type of plan? And I really don't see it. Like if Rich loses his job, that could be one thing that could really blow them up. But Karen is a teacher, so her job is very secure, right? Not much risk of her losing her job. Maybe she'll want to retire earlier than planned, but as we looked before, that very well could be a possibility. So overall, everything is looking great. I'll show you the education tab real quick, and then I'll just talk about recommendations, and we'll wrap this thing up. But we could look at 529, the savings for each of them. So like their son, he currently has a balance of $43,000 in the 529, and they're adding $3,000 a year as well. So with that, the education cost, right, $27,940 per year that they want him to go to a state school, right? Who knows if that's how it will play out? And they're going to be paying about $20,000 a year. So we could actually look at the details of that. So if we go for education costs for son, right, here's the actual cost each year, their son borrowing some money, the net cost of what they're going to be contributing. We could look at the 529. So they continue to add, right? They're assuming a rate of return on there where the portfolio is growing, and then we have the withdrawals here. So they actually have, I have it in here where they're contributing a little bit too long, which would be fine because they would be able to just change the beneficiary on this and move it into one of the girls' 529 plans. So it's easy using the software to also plan for college. All right, so let's go back to the profile and we'll wrap this up. So as far as recommendations go, off the top of my head for them, right? Emergency fund. So any excess cash that they have right now, we need to just plow away in an emergency fund, and let's have a goal of getting that to $30,000. All right. You send it somewhere, and you don't worry about it anymore. You open up a high yield savings account, an online bank, a place like I personally use Wealthfront, or Betterment is another good one, SoFi, Capital One. All of those are popular online banks that have competitive interest rates right now, and the money's safe and secure, FDIC insured, and it just sits there for when you have an emergency. Another thing that I would love to see them do, and I would probably prioritize this over the taxable brokerage account, and that would be both of them doing Roth IRAs each year. So they're under the income limitations where they could both contribute and max out Roth IRAs. So that would be a big priority for me. I would love to see them start saving for retirement through Roth accounts. And they're not in a very high tax bracket, right? So even doing Roth 401k contributions is something that I would have a conversation with Rich around if that makes sense. And I think it would, right? Because right now they have a lot of money in those pre-tax buckets. We got to start building that Roth bucket out. So those would be my big recommendations. You know, as far as the insurance stuff, we didn't jump too deep into that, but Rich, he had a nice big term policy. Karen, she might not have enough, and it might be good to get a private policy on top of that. So maybe a 20-year, 15-year term, somewhere in that range would be good. Maybe to the tune of $750,000 or so, in case, God forbid, something happened to her. At least Rich would get $1 million and be able to, take some time off work, whatever it is he needs to do, be able to pay for the kids' college, maybe pay off the mortgage, and not have to stress about money at that point. So that would be an important piece to it, to just make sure that they both have enough insurance. But as far as the game plan goes, they're doing everything great. I would just love to see them emergency fund, taxable brokerage account, Roth account, and start, piling money away in those. We didn't talk about an HSA at all in this video. I think they're under Karen's health insurance through the school district, which is very good, and they don't have an HSA option. So they're just sticking with the regular PPO type of plan and not contributing to an HSA. But I know I went through a lot in this video and I went fast. So I don't know if this is one that you could watch on 1.5 speed, because I was talking faster the whole way through, but I just wanted to bang through a lot of stuff. Hopefully you found this one helpful. If you want me to do a case study based on your general information, I don't want to know specifics, but your general information, email me. We could even set up like an outline. This is what I used to do with people. I'd send them a little outline to fill in, and then we go ahead and plug it in. And I don't use your real names or anything like that. And then, we do like a little case study on it. Again, obviously none of it is financial advice, right? I'm just going off general information just for educational purposes only, but I hope you found this one helpful. And yeah, I'm going to get back to doing these. Hopefully, once every 2 weeks or so is the plan right now, and kind of mix them in with my weekly video as well. So, all right, I will see you again in the next one. Thanks.